Tiffany Aliche. Welcome back to So Money.
Hey, Farnoosh, neighbor, aka neighbor, my Jersey
Yes.
neighbor.
By the way, are you moved into your new place all
Yeah, you
settled
have to come
in?
by. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, it's
I've been
gorgeous.
waiting for my invitation.
Okay, I'm gonna invite you over because Farnoosh and I only live literally minutes apart, and so it's beautiful. You're gonna love it.
I can't wait. I think about you every time I drive through Newark, which is often. And I'm dreading going there next week. The airports. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Have you traveled recently?
I have, and I will say that Newark Airport actually has been really great. So
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know, and
Don't tell anybody.
I literally just came back last week from Vegas because I had a speaking engagement, and the week before I was at a speaking engagement in California, and both ways, I was like, "Okay."
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been monitoring, and I think so far Newark does seem less frenzied than
Yes.
certainly LaGuardia, JFK. But,
Yeah.
every week of this government
I
shutdown,
know.
it just becomes increasingly more difficult, which I guess is a segue to us talking about money right now in this
Yes.
moment. So many layers of complexity. I mean, if it was just like inflation, that would be one thing.
Yes.
But I feel like it's inflation plus this very the Fed chairman basically said that the private job market, private sector is basically at a standstill.
Yeah.
I know plenty of people in my circle who haven't gotten jobs and they've been looking and they've been
Yeah.
very diligent. And then, of course, with all this uncertainty as well, this hanging over us,
Mhm.
people are throwing out the R word. Just did an episode on recessions and should we
Mhm.
be kind of gearing up for something like that? And so
Mm.
you've been in this space for 15 plus years.
Mhm.
Your book, which we're going to talk about, which is now more affordable in paperback,
Yes.
Get Good with Money. Does this moment feel different to you? And if so, how?
It feels different in that when I went through my first recession, I was in my late 20s. And so I was like, la, 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 la. Like I had no idea. I didn't understand any of the indicators. I literally purchased a house at the top of the market.
Yeah.
I remember I bought it for 220, and a few years later they're like, it's worth 150. I'm like, come again?
Oh my
So
God. Oh my
I
God.
was oblivious during that time. So also too, I had just graduated with my master's. So I had not had a safety net of savings. I just bought a condo, like I said. So the safety net that I did have, I used as a down payment. And I honestly believed as a teacher, even though I'd heard people were losing their jobs, I said, well, not me, because teachers don't lose their jobs. And survey said that's incorrect. Because I was at a nonprofit school, they lost their funding, and they
No,
were
no,
like,
no.
"You know that thing you have, like, once the summer's over, yeah, don't come back because 'cause we're not here anymore."
It's temporary,
I mean, and I just remember
permanent now.
and that's when I launched the Budgetnista essentially because I had to basically create a job for myself. So the way it feels different now is that I'm more aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
Also, too, I work essentially for myself, although still there's a lot of uncertainty in business. I mean, as you know, as a business owner, there's always uncertainty, but during times like this, there's a lot of uncertainty. But I will say I'm more prepared now
Hmm.
because I have more savings. I live well below my means intentionally. I was really scarred by the recession because I lost everything. I lost my
Yeah.
condo, I lost my job. I found myself $35,000 in credit card debt because of a scam. Someone had scammed me. And my boyfriend and I, we were together for like 6 years after. It was like 4 years in college and 2 years after we just broke up. So I lost everything.
Oh my gosh.
But like I'm in a more financially stable place now where I'm still nervous about what's to come. But I feel like I can brace myself and honestly, when I wrote Get Good with Money, it's really as a response to that last recession of
Yeah.
what did I need to do to be good with money to survive economic downturn?
What is making you nervous right now? Talking about the indicators. I mean, and I'm sure you're hearing from your community as
Mhm.
well. You just came from a speaking engagement, like you said, in Vegas. I'm sure lots of people came up to you, like,
Mhm.
with their own kind of now questions.
Yeah.
What do you think is a little or a lot making this moment especially uncertain?
Well, one, like, folks are like, even people who have, well, quote unquote, good jobs. I make 100,000. They're like, it's not enough. And not
Mhm.
like before. People would come up to me and I'm like, sis, let's look at that budget. Meanwhile, bing, bing,
Yeah.
bing, 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 these things right here. You could cut those back if you needed to. But now it's really like, it's not enough. And I'm looking like, I guess don't buy eggs.
Right.
You know what I mean?
go home and live with your
I
parents, I
mean,
guess.
the math truly isn't mathing as much, and so that is one of the indicators. Like, I have a very low cost product where it's like $30 a month, relatively low cost, and people are like, "I love it so much. Thank you so much for." I have this online universe, I call it, where you get this plan where it's Get Go with Money come to life, this blueprint, all these recorded videos, and then we have live sessions monthly. And then we have a community, and there's thousands of people in there. And now when people cancel, they're like, I want to stay. I can't afford the $30.
Yeah.
And so that's been huge where I'm like, okay. So even as a business owner, I've been like, what do I need to pivot? So one of the things,
Mhm.
I actually just had my team meeting. We have it same time every week on Monday. And I was telling them the pivot needs to be, can we find larger organizations to pay for everyday people? So that's
Mhm.
what we're working on, because people want to stay. They want the financial help and guidance. They don't have the $20 or the $30 a month. And I'm like, well, could a United Way pay for people in this neighborhood? Could this health insurance company pay for their people internally? Can Walmart have their employees do? You see what I mean? So that's
Yeah.
the pivot that I have to make as a business person, quite honestly, if I want to stay alive. As a
Mm.
business person. But that's what I'm seeing, that even people who make quote unquote good money and that are not overspending, that things are costing so much and they're not seeing a raise and they don't want to
No.
leave, because it used to be, if you don't get a raise here, just job hop to where, you know?
And I'm hearing it also from peers who are selling $2,000, $3,000 products as
hmm
well, that they're just getting out of that business altogether, that
Yes.
online course world.
Yep.
What are they doing?
Yeah, they're honestly, all my friends there are literally have closed their businesses down. Like, I won't even name names, but I'm just like, literally, I was telling that to my team this morning because they're like, oh, what are we doing wrong? I'm like, the fact that we're still profitable and multiple seven figures, we're not
Mhm.
as profitable as we used to be, like half as profitable. But I was like, it's because y'all are unicorns, because
Mhm.
everyone's out of this space. Everyone that I know is out of this space.
Yeah.
But I've always been committed to keeping my prices low. We've never had $2,000, $3,000. There's nothing wrong with that, but I've always said I want to help the person that I was,
Yeah.
which was, I didn't have a ton of money, and I still want to help that person, even if you don't have the $30 a month. That's why I'm like, ring, ring, ring. Hey,
Yeah.
bank,
Yeah.
can you
Yeah.
subsidize and
Right,
help?
right, right.
Because people want this help, and so I'm still in the helping business. But you're right, a lot of people are just jumping ship and totally abandoning their businesses
Yeah.
because people can't afford the $1,000.
Well, and it's also AI has been
Mm-hmm.
changing the way that people consume,
Yep.
and people don't value maybe the same sort of information economy because like I can just ask ChatGPT how to do
Mm-hmm.
X, Y, and Z. How have you stayed ahead of that in your brand?
Honestly, this is what I think, Farnoosh, is that, like, yes. I mean, I use chat. Hey, chat. I call her
Hey, Chatty. Yeah.
Cassandra. I'm like, Cassandra, what the hell you talking about? Sometimes, like, Cassandra will write something, and I'm like, this is not what I said.
Is that who? Mine's Sheila.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Cassie, no. Right? So, like, so for
I get
example,
so mad.
I mean, I'm like, literally, like, so I'm gonna be in somebody's newsletter, for my book, since it's coming out in soft cover. And like, a friend of mine was like, oh, I'll put you in my newsletter, answer these 4 questions. And I was like, oh, whatever, I'm gonna ask Cassie. Hey, Cassie, answer these questions like me. And one of the questions was like, why do you do what you do? How'd you get started? And it said, I didn't grow up learning about money. I'm like, Cassie, are you on drugs? Everybody knows I learned learned about money from my dad at home. It's the
Cassie
number
is
one
out of her
story.
mind. Yeah.
Yes, I said, Cassie, I literally told Cassie, go to my blog and read the story and come
You're in
back.
timeout.
Yeah, and she came back, was like, okay, girl, my bad. Anyway, as I grew up. So I just say all that to say, when it comes to AI, that yes, people can Google, but everything I've always taught was Googleable. I don't think people come to the Budgetnista for just the information. It's how it's disseminated. And we really work on transformation over here, not just like this tactile, because I believe in 3 ways. That 1, yes, you're going to get the online course. Yes, yes, yes. But that's the smallest of the piece. 2, we have live experts that come in, because sometimes you want a person. Like, literally, I have a friend, Bruce, that used to be a debt collector, and he was like, ugh, after a while, my soul couldn't take it. So now he comes in like once a quarter and says, here's how I would trick you to pay debt that you probably don't have to pay anymore. I mean, is Cassie telling you that? No, but
No.
Bruce is. And then the third component is the community. There are literally tens of thousands of people who get to work together because you might say, I'm a single mom with 3 kids who are all under the age of 5. I'm not sure how to navigate the holidays. I don't know what that's like, but other single mothers with 3 kids who are navigating that same thing will jump in and help each
Yes.
other. And so that's something that you can't get. So I don't really worry about that part because it's not just information. You want community and you want access to experts to ask specifically about what you need. And so that's how we've been able to survive.
Brilliant. Brilliant. All right, let's get into some of your advice
Mhm.
from Get Good with Money.
Yep.
This book is really about becoming financially whole.
Yes.
I'm wondering if now it's been what, 3 years since the
No,
book came out?
2021, 5
5
years.
years.
I
Oh my gosh, time
know.
is
I
flying.
know.
So when you think about that concept of financial wholeness,
Mhm.
has it evolved or are you still very much sticking to your guns here with what it means?
So no, I've stuck to my guns. Here's why, because it's still the same 10 core financial subjects you have to master personally. It just will look different depending on the time and where you are with your money. So those 10 things, right, are your budget is first. So these are the foundational 5.
Mhm.
Budget, savings, debt, credit, income, or learning to earn. Those are the foundational 5. And
Mhm.
then investing for, like
Mhm.
I say, investing for both retirement and wealth, insurance, your net worth, your financial team, and estate planning. Those
Yeah.
10 things don't shift. But I'll give you an example for our news. So estate planning when I was in my 20s meant my mom was the beneficiary on my bank account. Estate planning in my mid 40s is I have a trust that my businesses and my homes are in, and I have a will, and I have like an executor to that. You
Right.
see what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's still estate planning. It just looks different. A
Mhm.
budget looks different for a 30-something-year-old with no kids than a 50-something-year-old whose kids are all out of college. You know what I mean? And so it's still those 10 things. It's just depending on where you are and where we are collectively, like as a market, where you're going to land. And so I teach you in Get Good with Money how to personalize those 10 steps to your own personal financial wholeness journey.
Well, the math isn't mathing, as you said
Mhm.
earlier. So when you do have that person coming up to you and she's like, I make 6 figures
Mhm.
and I am doing all the quote unquote right things. There's not a lot of extra or,
Mhm.
yeah, maybe I do a splurge once in a while, but I have to because otherwise I would just,
Mhm.
I would collapse. What is your advice? What's next after you budget? If that's exhausted,
Yes.
that pillar, what is
Mhm.
the next thing?
So after budgeting is savings. And a lot of people are like, I can't save anything. I don't make enough.
How about budgeting was to save, right?
No, budgeting is just like telling your money in and out every month. What comes in versus what goes out every month. And savings is intentionally putting the excess somewhere. Because
Mhm.
people think like savings is I didn't spend. No, savings is not spend. It's not spending. It's you don't spend the thing and then you put it somewhere, aka a high yield savings account. Right. And then, two, if you can, for many of us, if we can master our debt and get some of that down, it actually would increase our savings rate, like how much we could actually save if we're more mindful of our debt and how we get into it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I hear you, but you have that store credit card still and it's 20-30% interest. That's crazy. No, or you haven't taken advantage of your credit's pretty good. Why not do a balanced transfer where you transfer to a card that's 0% interest for the next 12 months and pay it down? So now that's an extra few $100 a month you don't have to pay out. And so that's why debt is critical, not to necessarily get debt free, but to manage it in a way that you have excess money monthly.
Right,
And
right.
credit is going to be especially critical if we do go into recession, and we do, because many of us are going to, I've had to live off credit for a little while. It's like it's your savings account first. And then if that fails, you might have to live off credit for a little bit to get yourself
Mhm.
going. So it's not, credit is not just, and banks hate to hear because they're like, no, but whatever, it is what it is, right? Because credit certainly is so you can have access to purchase a car and a home and things that you don't have the ready cash available for, or you don't want to use your cash available. But credit can also be like a get out of jail free card while you're navigating hard times. And the fifth, and to me, the most important during times like this, is going to be income. Like for our news, like
Yeah,
what can you do to make excess income? Because you can't,
exactly.
we're not even talking about building wealth now. It's like, okay, well, I don't know. It could be something as simple as like I lived next to a train station. Could I rent out my driveway to commuters?
Right.
You know what I
Right,
mean? Because I
right.
work from home, so I can move my car to the left and right in the street. But a few extra $100 a month, could I do that?
I love
Um,
that. Let's think more
mhm,
about these ideas. I
mhm,
think this is where I think this is very accessible to so many
Mhm.
people, but it's just a matter of broadening your lens
Mhm.
and thinking through this concept of like that's a financial move. That's a moneymaker.
Yes.
That's like what are some other I love that idea of renting out your
Or
driveway.
even like was it FIFA? The World Cup is coming to like
Yes.
Jersey, right? And my friend of
Yes.
mine was like, Tiffany, have you thought about you? Because I bought two other condos, so I have three now. She's like, have you thought about? And I'm renovating them. She's like, well, they'll be done by next month in May. And she's like, okay, I think the World Cup is in June or July, one of the J's. And she's like, have you thought about renting it out for Airbnb? And I was like, I don't know, girl. She's like, no,
Mhm.
that the World Cup people are paying upwards of $5,000 a day. I said, say what now? $1,000 a day?
But that's like, well, maybe if there's but you gotta screen these people.
Yes, and so that's what she said. She said, which is smart for her, because this was a woman who's an attorney. Her husband is an engineer. So because she's been doing Airbnb for years, she said that Airbnb has like this like program where if she's been host for like, I don't know, 6, 7 years, you can bring people on and you help to manage. Cause she's like, I know how to vet. I know how
Uh-huh.
to. So she was like, so in exchange for maybe she gets 20% or 25%,
Yeah.
like in exchange for that, I will do that for you. And then you can rent out one of those ones. Maybe it's $3,000 or $4,000 a day, but maybe I do it for a week and you figure I make an extra $10,000, $15,000 for that week because of something special happening. So, if you live someplace where this doesn't make sense, but I'm telling you the things that I'm even thinking about, like,
Yeah.
okay. So I
Yep.
was like, you know what? To me, it would be worth it, to your point, Farnoosh. I don't want to learn how to do Airbnb, but for that, because I believe World Cup is a whole month. I don't know I do a whole month, so I'm sure I get cussed out in my building. But, like I could probably sneak in a
She's my
week.
cousin.
Exactly. I could probably sneak in a week, you know? And so, but that's what I mean. It's like, okay, how can I do it where it's not a lot of work? If she does all the vetting and all the everything else, okay, And I live here too, so I can be like, what's going on upstairs?
Right, right, that's important.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like figuring out where's the need, where's the demand. I
Mhm.
know, where I live, there's constant need for 24/7 childcare
Mhm.
at all
Mhm.
hours. Like a friend of mine pays someone just to come between the hours of 7 and 8:39 because she's a teacher, she has to be at her school district, her husband sometimes works overnights, so she has to get her 2 kids to school.
Mm.
But so it's that, like, witching hour of, like,
Mhm.
7 AM to 9 AM where she's gotta go out the door, but so do her kids,
Mhm.
and they're too little to just, like, drop them off at the bus stop or whatever.
Yes.
So, then she has a woman come who's free from 7 to 9,
Yes.
and she makes, a quick whatever, $100 or whatever she makes for these
Mhm.
2 kids.
I've seen ones for people to be like similar. It was can someone basically sit and have dinner with my mom, cuz there's like about a 2-hour gap. But in that 2 hours the mom needs to take her medication and eat dinner. So she's like,
Yeah.
you sit and and I'll pay whatever it was, like $50 or $100, whatever. And I thought, okay. And so I know for some people it's like, I can't do that. I can't do that. So when I think of not starting a business, but like extra money on the side, I look for two core things. One, I like to look for things where I don't have to learn a new skill set. So it's
Yeah.
either something like, either I know how to do it easily or maybe I did it before. Or so when I was teaching preschool, I used to babysit and tutor because the babies are the babies. I knew how
Yeah.
to do that. And then something I like to look for, especially if I'm not trying to do Airbnb and things like that, I like to look for something where I might have some sort of certificate or degree in because it means I can make more. So I
Yes.
used to tutor, and because I was a certified teacher, instead of making like, $20 an hour, I used to get paid like 35, 40, 50, because it was like, oh, teachers get paid more in this, and this is something you don't have to learn a new skill set. So those two
Right.
things, if you were, for example, my husband, when he was alive, he was a super for Newark Tenants Council. The place he was in charge of was 300 units. So when he wanted to make excess money on the side, he did handyman work because
There
it
you
was
go.
like nothing he didn't know how to fix. He'd be like, I'm like, where are you going? He's like, oh, I'm going to finish someone's floors, $500. Oh, and his brother was a master painter. So sometimes he had a twin brother. He has a twin brother. So sometimes they would team up and do things together. And I thought, oh, because he'd be like, yeah, he'd make extra money, be like, oh, that was your birthday present. Or I'm going to, do something. I want us to go on vacation. And so I thought, oh, that's so smart. So it's like no new skills. He has the tools already and he
Yep.
was able to like make money that way. So thinking to yourself, that's one of the best places to start.
It's in your wheelhouse. That's how
Mhm.
I started in my 20s. I needed extra money to make ends meet, and I was like, "Okay, I'm a daytime journalist, but I'm a storyteller, right?
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of ways to tell stories. My job allows me to do it one way. What are some other ways? So I started freelance writing for a newspaper.
Mhm.
That turned into a book. And, it's like, yeah, the lowest common denominator.
Yes.
Let's go with that. Well, a big part of what you preach too is how to manage your financial anxiety around
Yes.
money too. So you've got these important pillars, but
Mhm.
at the end of the day too, there's this hovering layer of anxiety. I
Yes.
live in this space a lot in my work
Mhm.
too. What do you recommend for people to do to sort of shift from that? I mean, the news doesn't help, obviously, but you have to
Yes.
stay informed to some extent.
Some extent, but this is what I learned from my therapist. Therapy has helped a lot. She said,
Yeah.
"Do you have to follow every story?" So I
I
actually honestly
know.
I took Instagram off my phone
You
because I was
did.
yes. I'm telling you for our news, it's the best thing. And it was so hard at first because I would just be reaching for it. So I will check Instagram on my computer. Because it means that
Okay.
now I'm intentional, not just this doom scrolling. It's like, because
Yes.
Instagram on your computer is not that fun. So it's like,
No.
so it's like boring, but I love that now because I'm like scrolling, I'm looking, I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But on your phone, you're like, all day.
Oh
So
my god, it's like feeding you stuff. It's become like TikTok. If you
I
spend, God forbid,
know.
more than 6.6 seconds on something, it's like,
They're
"Oh,
like, you like
Farnoosh
it.
likes those
Oh,
dog
exactly. Oh, you're
videos."
interested in groundhogs. Well, we're going to show you a bunch of,
Right.
don't click
I'm
on a
not
laughing baby.
I'm a
I'm like,
human, I
okay,
can't
I
scroll
get it.
fast enough. Give me a minute.
So on, I had to realize she was like, I stay informed. So maybe like once a day or whatever. Cause like I said, Instagram's not that fun on my computer. So obviously I have to be on for business. And there are instances where I have to like re-download it because I have to upload in a certain way.
Oh my
And I
god.
take it back off. So that's one of the ways.
You make it painful, that's the key, right?
Yes. Because I'm just like, it's too much. Then I having savings, and I know it's hard during these times, but like being more in control of my finances makes me feel more in control. And so
Right.
not doing it alone. So one of the financial wholeness steps in Get Good with Money is your financial team.
Yes.
And I like everyone doesn't agree, but I like like a financial advisor, specifically a certified financial planner.
Yeah.
So mine, Anjali, I've been working with like maybe over 5 years now. But you can find one. Like I know Mandy of Brown Ambition, my homegirl. I'm not the Brown Ambition co-host anymore, but Brown Ambition still goes. The
Yes.
podcast I did for 9 years with her. But
Wow.
Mandy, for example, uses someone, which is funny. Like she calls her the tiebreaker, Helen, for her and her husband. When they're like, no, we shouldn't get this. Like Helen, what say you? But
Ellen's
they
on
pay her
speed dial, yeah.
right. But you can pay hourly. So
Yes.
you might, and hourly is anywhere from typically like $150 to $300, which sounds like a lot hourly. But what if you did a meeting once a year,
Yeah.
$300 for the year,
Right.
And so helping maybe someone looking at your finances and giving you hey, like your doctor, your annual checkup. This is
Yes.
what you need to do. This is what you could be doing better. Tighten up here. So having someone other than you look at your financial state and give you advice, then that's their expertise is another way that I help to lower my financial anxiety. And then trying to be like, I used to be so afraid to like open up mail when I used to be late on bills and things like that, like in my 20s and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I had my best friend Linda, who she's not a financial expert. She's just my bestie. And we would have like letter opening parties where I would open her stuff and read it and be like, "Ooh, girl, you owe $3.45 because you ran a toll." And she's like, "Okay," I'm like, "Okay, open mine, open mine. What does it say?" She'd be like, "Oh, it's not so bad," because she's not as tied to.
Don't ever open it if it's from the DMV, like,
I know
don't.
it's the
Just
worst. And so I always say another thing is an accountability partner.
yeah.
So someone who is invested in you, but not necessarily your finances, because sometimes you think to yourself, oh my God, oh my God. And they're like, it's not that big of a deal because they're just like, you don't owe as much as you think. So they should be helping you open your mail, writing the things down, and you do the same for them. So you kind
Mhm.
of have a space where you're like, this is a safe space to navigate my finances. And so, because I still struggle from Farnoosh, post-traumatic broke syndrome. Child, it was a rough time. I mean, sleeping on couches. I moved back home. This is all in my late 20s, early 30s. It was a rough
There was a
time.
story about a lamp.
Oh yes, oh yes. So I did not want to tell my father in particular, Mr. Financial Genius. He has his master's in like economics and his bachelor's in finance, and he taught me better. Literally, I remember like we had literally money lessons every Thursday when I lived home, and I listened up until I was about 23. Then I said, I'm grown and foolish. Let me do it myself. And then that's when I got all the scams and all the.
Oh
I
my
was
god.
$300,000 in debt less than a few years after leaving home, and only some of that was my house.
I mean, that's pretty impressive.
I know.
Can we just
I
appreciate that?
mean, the
You
nosedive that
go
I
for
did.
it. You really, like,
I mean, I said, you know, if I'm gonna go for the
you got an
gusto.
A in getting
I
scammed.
mean, an A plus plus. And so I didn't want to tell him. And so I like when I knew I was getting my condo foreclosed upon, I brought home because they lived in Jersey too, my mom and dad. So I brought home a lamp. My dad's like, oh, we don't need a lamp. I was like, oh, I'm just leaving here because they had like a mother-in-law suite in the basement, but it was empty because no one was there. I'm like, I'm just leaving it here. And then I brought
Yeah.
home like another thing and another thing, and then my mattress. He was like, wait. I had told my mom. I was like, Mommy, I'm going to move back home. She's like, you know, Mom, okay, baby, come on back home. And
Oh
my
my
dad, I
god.
didn't want to tell him, like, you know, about the scam. So I didn't. Instead, what I did was he knew I lost my job. So he assumed that it was that. And then I had just written my first book I self-published called The 1 Week Budget. And in it, I have a chapter about debt and I talk about the scam. And I said, before this book goes live, and one of my aunties or uncles says, did you see what happened to Tiffany? My parents are Nigerian. I said, let me give this to my father. So I was like, Daddy, I need you to read this. Start on page 108. Okay, bye. And he read it and like the whole scamming, like, and he was
Oh
like,
my
my goodness, is that why you move home? I said, yeah. Yeah. He said, I hope you know that's not a friend. I'm like, I know, Daddy. And so, but I kept that secret for myself for the longest. I
But
know.
oh my god, I love that story. But scams they happen to the best of us.
Pardon,
You
someone
heard
just
about
used my card this weekend.
Wait, what?
I have a business that I closed down 5 years ago, and I got a ping and said, hey, you know, does this charge look familiar? I said, no. I'm like, no. So I typed no. And then my bank called me and they said, and I thought it was just that one random thing. And they were like, did you use it this morning for $2,000? I'm like, what? And I was like, wait, is this my gold card? Whatever. They're like, no. They told me the name of my business. And I was like, it was an old business that I had. I'm like, that business has been shut down for the longest. How did somehow they got the card redirected to them.
Wow.
And they had been trying since yesterday to use the card. So the scams are still scamming. And so now
Yeah.
I have to go through the whole process of it's not me and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, also too, I'm like, but I closed the bank. I told him, I said, I closed this bank account and sent you the closed business letter. So how are they even able to reactivate a card that, that one, the business no longer exists and I closed it out with y'all. They were like, we're going to look into that. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I'm saying the scams are still high alert. I mean, I get spam calls, I'm sure you do too, 20 times a day.
You just don't pick them up.
Yeah.
I had and the business accounts are most vulnerable, I'm learning. So because, business accounts, I guess the reason behind that is that they know that there's money in there probably. And I had a bank fraud situation last winter where like you, I got a ping like, hey, did you spend this like $3,000? And I'm like, no. And then come to find out there were all these fake checks in my name. Somebody was cashing. They had somehow gotten my routing number and my account number. I mean, breaches are happening all the time, right? So who knows? And I even had the bank images, because the bank takes a
Yes.
picture. So I'm like, all right, Ralph, and there's always someone else. They're like Ralph and then Susan. I'm like, but it was always like in the Midwest somewhere. And they were just going to a check cashing place, right? And those get cashed immediately.
Yeah.
So I had to put a freeze on the account and then I ultimately closed it.
Yeah.
But I also just froze my credit lines. I talked about this on social media simply because it's always a good thing to do if you are nervous, but especially now with the war in Iran and there was at least one incident of a cyber attack. And so it's like it's nothing off your back when you do that. And it's very easy to do. You can go on to all the major credit bureaus and do that. Basically,
and just freeze it.
Blocks people from being able to open up accounts.
And also, too, you should really do that, especially when my husband passed away in 2021. I remember Anjali, my financial advisor, she said, this is going to sound strange and crazy. And I hate that I even have to say this, Tiffany, but you need to go in and freeze Jarrell's accounts because people read the obituary and they know that you're in the middle of grief.
Wow.
And so she was like, this is like the number one. It's just literally there are scammers that just look to see who passed away and jump on it. And so I was like, what? And that was one of the first things I did financially to navigate grief was to freeze everything. So it's like one less thing to worry about. So just consider that. Like if you have a loved one that passed away or whatever, to freeze their account so you don't wake up to bills that like you don't owe.
Yeah. Man, that's That's a good financial advisor.
She's amazing. That's why I said Anjali is really like the best. And I have to
How did you
say,
find her? Like, I mean, talk a little about the process of finding these team members because so many people, especially
mhm.
people who are well, no, like celebrities, powerful people like they get scammed too,
Yeah.
right?
So how I found Anjali was like I found her maybe like 5 or 6 years. I had used a bunch of different other financial advisors. They didn't work out. And I was burnt out. I was like, I'm never gonna find anyone. So finally I said, you know what? I posted on Facebook, which is like this is when Facebook was people were still kind of using it. And I was like, I need a financial advisor. Please share someone that you have used. Cause I was like, like not like, oh, I heard. I said, no, somebody you have used. And I want to say it was like 20 people said, oh, I like this person, this person, this person. And then I said, Tiffany, you're going to be ready. So what's so good about Get Good with Money is that I created a free toolkit. So if you go to getgoodwithmoney.com, you get to get the toolkit even if you don't get the book, it's free. And
Mm.
so, because in that toolkit, I have something that I created called my so-called financial life. So
Mhm.
for some of y'all, you're too old. But I mean, you're too
Oh, yeah.
young. Like, I mean, I grew up like Claire Danes, it's my so-called life.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a cute turn, but the Z's are like, who? Anyway, look it up. It's a good show.
It's a great
I
show.
mean, okay. And so I created this document where it was like Tiffany's financial life on paper. How much do I make? How much do I have in savings, in checking? Do I have a mortgage? Everything, all my financial hopes, goals, dreams, fears, everything. So in that document, I created a blank version for you to fill it out. And then when I before I interviewed financial advisors, so I didn't mind sharing all that. Like I didn't say, here's my bank account number, just like, hey, I make this amount of money a year. I have this much savings. And so I would go and I would say, I sent an initial email. Are you looking for clients? And they would say yes. And I would say, before we meet, can you just review this document to see if we're fit? So of the 20, I want to say 6 said no. It wasn't a fit. Because like, for example, there was one woman who specialized into 4Cs. I said, okay. And then
Yeah.
someone else was like, my things are teachers, but like school teachers. And I wasn't that anymore. So it was such a great way that meeting someone before meeting them. And
Mm.
so when I met with the other like 12 and I interviewed them, they were just like, oh, I didn't have to, I forgot to tell you that I want to buy a house later. I forgot to, everything was there. And so
Right,
we
right,
just
right.
talked about, here's where I am, here's where I want to be. How would you help me? And what happened was when I interviewed those 12, I want to say at least 5 of them, because I'm a tough customer. It's like trying to, a hairdresser
Yeah.
getting her hair done or a doctor. Doctors are the
Yeah.
worst patients. Child,
Yeah, yeah.
I was taking them through it. And I was like, what about,
Yeah.
what about, what about, what about, what about?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
they were like, you know who you should talk to? My homegirl, Anjali. She does. I was like, oh, okay. First person said it. Next person, you know who you should talk to? Anjali. She was like the
Oh.
financial advisor's advisor, kind of like.
Okay,
I was
okay.
like, she wasn't on my list. But when they said it, she was the last person I interviewed, and I took her in, on, over the river, through the woods. And she and I suspect Anjali is Indian. And so it's hard to tell, like Black women. We got some melanin. It's hard to tell, like, age. So I suspect we're around the same age. And I said, okay, good. She's not going to, like, it's like going to the doctor. He's already 80. You're like, you're going to retire soon. So I also wanted someone who was like, we're
Your
in it
contemporary.
together.
Yeah.
Hey, BFF, when you retire, so will I. And
I
so
believe
she was excellent. And of course, I did my due diligence, looked her up, and it has been amazing. A good financial advisor. I'm telling you, I didn't realize how good she was until after Jarrell passed away. And the way she helped me navigate that space, because when I had met Anjali, Jarrell was still alive. We had been working with her for like 2 or 3 years. So she knew all of our financial business. When he passed away, she was like, his job has a pension for you. This is how you go get it. He has these other life. I didn't even remember the life insurance policies. This is how you get it. Anjali had him sign the life insurance policies over to me when we got married. We forgot. So imagine. There was so
Wow.
much. Even so, Alyssa's mom and I were cool, Shantae. So since Jarrell worked for so long, he had Social Security that Alyssa, his daughter, she was 15 at the time, she was not available for, but, she was supposed to receive Social Security. I did not know this, but Social Security is like no backseas. If you wait 6 months, you miss out on 6 months. And so I did
Oh.
not know that. And it was a good amount of money because now that Jarrell was not going to be here to financially support her on his half, because they had joint physical residential custody, her mother was going to need financial support. Of course, I was going to be there, but not like how he was, you know?
Mhm.
And so I called Shantae, was like, my financial advisor told me, Shantae, I know we're all like head spinning, and this is week 1 of him not being here, but you need to file for Social Security for Alyssa now so you can get the financial support that you need to continue to take care of her. And so she did. And Social Security, because I was married to Drew, I had to sign all this paperwork. She started getting that money right away. But Anjali did that, told us that, and gave us the number and say what to say. So I just say a good financial advisor, a certified financial planner, is holistic. And this is the last thing
Mhm.
I'll say about it, is that one of the reasons why I picked Anjali is that not only was she a CFP, so a certified
Mhm.
financial planner, she was a CPA, a certified public accountant. So she doesn't just do Tiffany, she
Oh.
also does the Budgetnista. And so finding one that's specific to what you need, I needed someone who could personally advise me, but also in the business side. So she does both. So that means it's a write-off for me. So she was just a perfect match for me.
Amazing.
Hmm.
I feel like I might have interviewed her once upon a
You might have.
time.
She's awesome.
Yeah, for articles and so on. With Jarrell's passing,
Mhm.
and now it's been what, a
5 years almost. This
5
year will be the 5th
years.
year. I know. It feels like just yesterday.
What you've been speaking more I've watched you on Mel Robbins at least a
Yeah.
couple times talking about working through grief
Yeah.
while you're also trying to, like, manage your money. What would be your biggest piece of advice for somebody who's just lost a loved one, who's just lost a partner and is single and is trying to work through, and they don't maybe have a financial plan, they don't
Mhm.
have a team, right? What is the
Mhm.
most important thing for them now that you have this hindsight?
Is that like, well, it's to give yourself a lot of grace and space. Honestly, like even with the me not having to worry about money, I thankfully gave myself enough space to just like process through, like, he's really gone. Because it wasn't
Mhm.
like he had cancer. He had an aneurysm. He was here on Monday and gone on Friday, like literally, just like that. So, I mean, still there's some days I'm like, yo, that's wild that you're not here. Because it's like, you were
Right.
just here. And so to not, I mean, it sounds so cliche, but to not make any major decisions in the first 6 months to 6 to 12 months because you're not here. I literally just woke up one day, 2 years later, and I was like, where am I? Because I had been in such deep grief that I was just kind of going through the motions. I don't even remember the first year, because so I can't imagine making choices from that space. So
Mhm.
one thing that I like that Anjali did for me is she walked me through, she had like 10 things for me to do. And so the first one was like cancel, cancel his credit essentially. So just the
Mhm.
bare minimum things that you need to
Yeah.
do. So like I looked through, was like, okay, I could just do that and just do that. And if you have to still go to work, don't be afraid to ask for time. I know somebody
Mhm.
whose like mom passed away on Friday, was back to work on Monday. And I was like, that's your mom. And I asked him, did they require that? He's like, no. But I said, no, but I think most people can agree that, like, if you had to take some time, and so I know some jobs don't allow for it, but if you have the space to take time, to take time.
Yeah.
Because we in the United States, I don't think we grieve in a way that's healthy. Other
Mhm.
cultures, like, for example, if you haven't watched Coco, the movie, you get to see how Mexican culture keeps their level, like the Day of the Dead, and keeping them, like, they have pictures of them around. It's such a great movie.
I love that movie.
That's how they grieve. Or like I know in Jewish traditions, they sit Shiva, right?
Right.
People come and see you. And so there's these beautiful traditions. Like I know culturally in my culture, Nigerian culture, and certainly not every aspect of Nigerian culture, there's Igbos, there's Yorubas, but like if you're older and you pass away, it's a huge celebration of your life. And we
Right.
really get to talk through that. And we literally have a party where we have this big picture of you that we dance with you, we laugh with you, we
Oh,
and so, like, I think because we need process, it's not like mom's gone. Okay, anyway, so back to
just
wait.
bury myself in my work, right.
No, you have to give yourself space. So, not even the financial component, but here's some non-financial things that I did that were helpful. Everybody that would come to visit Jarrell when he was like in the hospital and basically he was just on life support because he was an organ donor. So they keep you, on life support. And so every time somebody would come, I would ask that they have pictures of him and they would say yes. So I would add them to, I had a Google photo album, and then you could tag his face and say, if his face is in your picture, add it to the album. And
Okay,
so they
okay.
did it. So I went from like, maybe
Wow.
1,000 pictures to like was in pictures I'd never seen when he was a little boy, when he
Oh,
was in school. And so we had this beautiful album of video and pictures and that we're all a part of. And it's just, I can literally hear him say, I love you. Because I have a video where he's
uh,
like, oh, babe, I love you. Alyssa, because her nickname, which she's going to hate, is Dookie Bear. I don't know why. And so there's a video of him saying, Dookie Bear, it's me, daddy. I love you. I miss you. So at any
oh,
moment, she can hear him say that, you know?
right, right,
And
right.
so, like, I can see, I mean, I met him in my 20s, but I can see pictures of him as a baby when he was a teenager. So at any moment, I literally have thousands of memories to tap into. It's one of the favorite non-financial things that I was able to do for myself, but not just for myself, but for everybody who loved him because there's so many of us in that album that people add things regularly, especially in the beginning where I'm like, I get to be delighted, like, oh, I never saw this one.
Aw,
Yeah, it's really
that is
great.
beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I didn't even know you could do that.
Mm-hmm.
That is a beautiful, beautiful way to, continue honoring him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Tiffany, thank you so much. You're always, like, the best, I have to say,
No,
you
and you know
know?
what? As I like, we talked offline, but about like I'm in some sort of transition. I'm not really sure like what's gonna shake out of it. I've been doing business now for 16 years, but
Yeah.
something that's come up for me is that I think I want to write. Not even think. I'm going to write a book about grief, not a financial book, just a book. Because I've
Yeah.
learned so much. And so I'm going to call it The Gifts of Grief because there's so many beautiful lessons that I've learned. Because I don't think, Farnoosh, that grief is bad. I used to think like, oh my God, grief
Oh,
is
it's a sign of love. I
no, right?
mean, right?
It's just like so yes, no one is saying I'm grateful for the loss, but there's so many amazing lessons that I've learned. I am a better friend, a better daughter, a better sister, a better boss, a better person. Like the first couple years definitely it knocked me out, but as I came out from the dark place, I'm like, "Oh man, like Jarrell taught me what enough looked like." Cuz he'd be like, "Babe, we
Mm.
got enough." And I was like, "No, more." Like and so but I have adopted some of that like, "Yo, we're good." You know? And he was such a good neighbor. I mean, he was literally like Mr. Rogers. I'm kind of shy. People don't think I am. If I know you, it's cool, but if I don't, I'm like go in the house, if the neighbors catch me, I'm like, wave, not
Yeah.
him. I remember our first weekend, I'm like, what's all this mail? He's like, Bob and Betty across the street. They're on vacation. I'm like, how do you even know them? But
Yeah, I
like,
remember the story you told about the woman who came, asked if he could, like, mow her lawn
yes, well,
or shovel her snow.
she was like she had to be like her 70s or 80s. A week or
Uh-huh.
so after he passed away, she knocked on my door. I never met her before. And she lived, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 houses down. And she said, I heard the gentleman here passed away. And I was like, yeah. She said, well, he used to basically mow my lawn, shovel my snow. And I was like, what? He never told me. And of course he wouldn't because that was him. And I already knew how it happened. When I asked her, how did he come to do that? I knew already. She was like, well, I was outside. Imagine this 70-year-old woman trying to rake. Outside trying to rake, and he drove by and saw her. I knew him because he's the type, if he sees you struggling, if he saw you struggling, he would jump out. Meanwhile, my husband was 6'6", the 6'6" guy.
Wow.
I'm sure she probably was like, what's happening here? And she was like, do you want me to help you rake? And she said, okay. And so he was like, I'll be by every week. So he mowed her lawn, raked, shoveled,
What a
and never
sweetheart.
said, I mean, I consider myself a nice person, but Jarrell was like another level. But I'm more like that now because that was a gift that he gave me. Like, how do I be a better neighbor?
Yeah.
Like that. And so I think that like even in times like now, with all the financial uncertainty, there are still some joys, non-financial joys. That's what I encourage people to tap into as you are trying to tighten up what money and financial wholeness might look like for you, to not abandon your ability to access joy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Can I tell you, I have heard this theme around happiness and
Mhm.
joy more and more and more. Not so much like be happy, because like the happy industrial complex, like we know all about that,
Mhm.
but this intentionality,
Yes.
right? To give ourselves permission.
Yes.
I can't probably guess this about you because we had a similar like immigrant daughter,
Mhm.
upbringing, high expectations,
Yes.
that like having fun, it was like taboo, you know? Like, what do you mean you're gonna have fun? Go read a book.
Yes.
What do you mean you're gonna have fun? Don't you have a test on
Yes.
Wednesday? Right? Like, this idea of just lounging around, it was unacceptable, let
Mhm.
alone actually going out to a party
Yes.
or a rave or whatever,
Mhm.
like skipping to the park. Why are you skipping? It's not safe. One foot in front of the other. And
I'm
I
like, "Do you
think
know
as
my dad?" I'm like, "My news, hey, you give me
oh my god,
flashbacks."
your dad and my dad and all of our aunts, they got together. But I think now and I wrote a letter to my daughter. She just turned 9. I
Aw.
decided, why did it take me so long to realize, like, this is could be a cool memento for her,
Mhm.
like, to write her a letter every birthday. So I started this year, and I ended with, everything I'm, like, so thrilled about her and proud of her and the
Mhm.
things that I'm just, like, wowed by her. But at the end, I was like, if I have a piece of advice for you, continue to lean into the fun that you have
Yeah.
every day, the fun that she seeks out.
Mhm.
Don't lose that, because it took me until I was, like, 40 to
Mhm.
realize, like, why have I why have I missed out on so much fun? I mean, I
Mhm.
remember being in my 30s and my friend who was in her 60s, 50s being like, "You know what? I'm all about having fun." And I was like, "Yeah, when I get to be 50 or 60, maybe, I've earned it." But I'm like, "Why?"
Yeah.
There's a shame, I think, that we
Yes.
have, that we carry sometimes. Like, fun means you're being careless or reckless or not serious.
That you should mine for joy, like, dig through your life.
Mine for joy.
Yeah. It could be something as simple as, like, when I take a walk, like, kids are delighted. I remember I took my niece, she's now 9 too. By the time she was, like, 3 or 4, and she was, like, talking to the animal, "Hi, Mr. Squirrel. Look,
Uh-huh.
auntie. Look, it's Mr. Bird." And I was like, "What?" And then I thought, so sometimes when I walk by myself, I live by this beautiful park that's filled with cherry blossom trees in the spring. I think, like, I saw a gopher yesterday, and I was like, quietly, I was like, "Hey, Mr. Gopher." But it was such a delight. I'm like, "This tree is gorgeous." Like, we could finally go outside a little bit. And so I just think that, in the midst of the money, mine for joy.
Mine for joy. Tiffany Aliche, thank you so much. Get good with money, everybody. Now in
Yes.
paperback.
Yes.
Great to see you.
Great to see you too.